You're not bad with money. You're emotional.
Picture this. It's 2026. Your AI financial advisor tells you to sell everything. Your favorite crypto influencer on Neuralink tells you to bet the farm on Dogecoin 2.0. Your friends are all showing off their AI-generated market gains. Who do you listen to? The machine, the mob, or your own gut?
Welcome back to the Better Version Book Club, the podcast where we don't just read the world's most influential books, we pressure test them against the world we're actually living in. That question is exactly why we're digging into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money today. Because if money were purely logical, none of us would need this book. But it's not. It's emotional. And in 2026, it's amplified by algorithms. So let's set the stage. Morgan Housel isn't a Wall Street quant or a hedge fund guru. He's a writer, a partner at the Collaborative Fund, and a former columnist for the Wall Street Journal.
And this book exploded because it wasn't another how-to-get-rich-quick scheme.
Which is a crowded market. I could build a house out of unread books promising to make me a millionaire. Probably a very unstable house.
Right, but Housel's angle is different. He argues that finance is typically taught like physics, with rules and formulas, when it should be taught like psychology. It's a soft science, governed by emotion, ego, and storytelling. This book is less a financial manual and more a behavioral one for making decisions under uncertainty.
So it's not about what spreadsheet to use. It's about understanding the messy human wiring that makes us ignore the spreadsheet in the first place. Exactly. And one of the most important ideas running quietly through the entire book is this. Being reasonable is better than being perfectly rational. The mathematically optimal strategy is worthless if you can't emotionally stick with it for decades. Let's get into the first big idea, which is the core of the whole book. Financial decisions are driven by emotion, not pure reason. Housel tells stories of people who are objectively brilliant, CEOs, surgeons, who make disastrous financial decisions. It's because we all bring our own unique history, fears, and desires to the table. Someone who grew up in poverty will have a fundamentally different view of risk than someone who inherited wealth. There's no single rational answer that fits both.
Okay, but let's stress test that for 2026. We're in an era where algorithmic trading dominates the market. We have AI advisors that can theoretically remove emotion entirely. Does the messy human argument still hold up when machines are making more of the calls?
I think it holds up even more, because who programs the AI? Who decides to trust its recommendation?
A human?
Right, and what happens when the AI says sell, but your entire social feed is screaming diamond hands and showing rocket emojis? The external social pressure, the fear of missing out, is an emotional override switch. The AI might be rational, but the user is still human. We're more influenced by the stories and the social proof around us ever now.
Think back to the March 2020 crash when the pandemic hit. The rational AI would say stocks are on a 30% discount, but the emotional human, watching the world shut down, felt nothing but panic. Millions sold at the bottom, locking in devastating losses because the story in their head was, this is the end. The people who did nothing, or even bought more, felt the same fear, but they let their predefined strategy override their emotions. So the battle isn't man versus machine, it's man versus himself, with the machine as a new, very persuasive tool, and the mob as an even louder one. That's a fair point.
This leads right into his second major idea, the power of compounding and just staying in the game. It's the least exciting but most powerful concept. It's not about getting the highest returns. It's about getting pretty good returns that you can stick with for the longest possible time.
He uses the classic Warren Buffett example. Everyone knows he's a brilliant investor, but his real secret is that he's been a brilliant investor since he was a teenager. Time is the magic ingredient.
And connected to this is the idea that wealth is what you don't see. This is such a crucial reframe in the age of social media. We see the influencer with the rented Lamborghini and the expensive watch.
And we don't see their credit card statement or the fact that car goes back tomorrow. We see spending, which is the opposite of wealth. Wealth is the car not bought, the upgrade not taken. It's money in the bank, invested and compounding, giving you options and freedom. It's inherently invisible.
And that options and freedom piece is key. Housel makes it very clear that the highest form of wealth isn't status, it's independence. It's the ability to wake up and say, I can do what I want today. Control over your time. That's the real dividend when he pays.
Exactly. Consider two doctors who graduate at the same time, both earning $300,000 a year. Dr. A buys a big house, a new luxury car, and expensive vacations. They look rich. Dr. B lives in a more modest house, drives a 10-year-old car, and invests the massive difference in their income. After a decade, Dr. A is still running on the hamster wheel of high expenses, while Dr. B has a net worth in the millions. Dr. B is wealthy, but their wealth is completely invisible. It's just numbers in a brokerage account, quietly compounding. It feels like a philosophy that runs completely counter to the modern economy, which is built on showing, sharing, and signaling status. It's a quiet internal metric of success in a very loud external world.
It's almost subversive. Build freedom, not applause. All right, let's move to core idea number 3, the role of luck, risk, and the absolute necessity of having room for error. We love to create narratives about successful people being geniuses who saw the future.
Right, the hero worship.
Housel points out that luck and risk are siblings. For every Bill Gates who had a 1 in a million confluence of luck, right school, right time, right access to a computer, there's another equally brilliant person who got hit by the risk side of that equation and failed. You can't model for that.
So, because you can't predict these black swan events, the most important thing you can do is build a buffer. He calls it room for error. It's not being conservative, it's being unbreakable. It's about ensuring that when some unforeseen event happens, a market crash, a pandemic, you lose your job. You're not forced to sell your assets at the worst possible time.
This is the single biggest mistake people make. They optimize their portfolio for the best case scenario. They leverage themselves to the hilt for maximum returns, assuming the good times will keep rolling. That leaves zero room for error. A single bad month, a single surprise, and they're wiped out. They can't stay in the game to let compounding work.
Think of it this way. You can have the perfect budget, the perfect investment plan, everything optimized. But then you get hit with an unexpected $50,000 medical bill. If you have no room for error, no emergency fund, no insurance buffer, that single stroke of bad luck forces you to sell your investments at a bad time, derailing a decade of good decisions. That's risk. It doesn't care how good your spreadsheet is. It's the difference between a plan that looks good on paper and one that survives contact with reality.
But before we get to the critiques, there are a couple more core ideas that are essential to his worldview. The first is what he calls tails you win. This is a really powerful concept from the world of venture capital that applies to everyone. Right. The idea is that a tiny number of events are responsible for the majority of outcomes. Think of Disney. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy multiple times. It was the insane outlier success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs that single-handedly saved the company and funded everything that came after. Most of what they tried in the early days failed.
The same is true for investing. A few big winners in a portfolio often account for the majority of the games. It's not about being right 100% of the time. It's about being right a few times and being right in a way that matters.
That's a fantastic point. This isn't about just your stock portfolio. It applies to careers, businesses, creative projects. You can be wrong, and then right once, and it can be all that matters. The key is that you have to be able to survive all the little failures to be around when the big success hits. If any one of those little failures wipes you out, you never get to see the tail end outcome.
And the same is true for investing. The venture capital industry runs on this. They know that most of their investments will fail, a few will break even, but 1 or 2 will be a Google or an Amazon and pay for all the other losses 100 times over. Housel's argument is that this isn't just a niche strategy, it's how most of the market works. A few big winners drive the overwhelming majority of returns. Okay, let's transition to the critique section, because no book is perfect. I think there are three major challenges to Housel's philosophy, especially when you apply it to the real world in 2026.
All right, I'm ready. Let's hear them. What's the first objection?
Objection number one is something you hear a lot. The advice is too conservative for young people. If you're 22 and starting with nothing, the slow and steady path of index funds and patience might mean you only achieve real freedom when you're 60. The argument is that significant wealth creation requires taking concentrated, asymmetric risks early on, starting a business, joining an early-stage startup, investing heavily in a sector you know well. Housel's framework is fantastic for wealth preservation, but it's arguably too passive for ambitious wealth creation.
I see the point, but I think it misreads Housel's intention. He's not saying don't take risks. He's saying you must structure your financial life so you can survive the risks that don't pay off. Having that boring, solid financial base with a high savings rate is precisely what gives you the stability to take a shot at starting that business or taking a lower-paying job at a startup with equity. It's not about avoiding risk. It's about building a foundation that makes you resilient to failure so you can stay in the game long enough for one of your bets to pay off.
Fair enough. My second objection is that the behavioral advice, while true, is too soft to be useful in a crisis. Telling someone to be reasonable or stay patient during a 30% market crash is like telling a person having a panic attack to just calm down. The entire point of panic is that the rational brain has been hijacked. The advice is correct, but it lacks a hard, tactical system for what to do when your own psychology is working against you.
I'll concede that it's not a tactical playbook. It's a philosophy. But the how is implied. You build the systems before the panic hits. The value of reading Housel isn't so you can remember his quotes during a crash. It's that his philosophy encourages you to automate your investments, to have a written plan, and to set asset allocations when you're calm and rational. The system is the defense against the panic. The book provides the why, so you're motivated to build your own how.
My third and biggest critique is that the book operates from a position of privilege. The advice to save more money is only useful if you have money to save. For millions of people struggling with stagnant wages, student debt, and the rising cost of living, there is no gap between their ego and their income. Their entire income goes to survival. The book's focus on individual behavior, while valuable, almost entirely sidesteps the systemic economic factors that make it impossible for many people to even get to the starting line of building wealth.
That is an absolutely crucial point, and it's a valid critique of the entire genre of financial self-help. Housel can only offer advice on how to play the game. He can't change the rules of the game itself. And the reality is, the game is harder for some than others. However, I would argue that for those who do have even a small amount of discretionary income, his principles become even more critical. If you only have a little to save, you can't afford to make big emotional mistakes or get wiped out by a single risk. The principles of patience, room for error, and avoiding the pull of envy are universal, even if the scale is different. So let's zoom out and talk about its relevance in 2026. We've touched on AI, but there's more. Think about the creator economy. Millions of people now have highly volatile incomes. One month they have a viral hit and make a killing, the next 3 months are crickets. Housel's advice about saving like a pessimist and investing like an optimist seems tailor-made for that reality.
Let's really break that down for the creator economy. Saving like a pessimist means when you have a viral hit and a $20,000 month, you cannot upgrade your life to match. You have to live as if you make $4,000 a month and save the rest ferociously, because a $1,000 month might be right around the corner. It's the definition of building room for error into your income, not just your investment.
Let's talk about the AI advisor again. What happens when the AI is wrong? Or more realistically, what happens when it gives you perfectly rational advice that leads to a bad outcome because of bad luck? Housel's philosophy prepares you for this. If you have room for error, a single bad AI recommendation doesn't wipe you out. It also reminds you that the AI is a tool, not an oracle. Your own temperament, your own goals, what helps you sleep at night? These are the things that should ultimately guide your decisions. The AI can optimize a portfolio, but it can't optimize a life.
Absolutely. The room for error isn't just for market crashes, it's for life's volatility. Another big one is the data-driven workplace. Companies now have endless data on performance, which creates this constant pressure to optimize. That same mindset bleeds into our personal finances. We're obsessed with optimizing returns, minimizing taxes, finding the perfect asset allocation.
And Housel's core message is a direct antidote to that. He says reasonable is better than rational. The mathematically optimal strategy is worthless if you can't stick with it. It's better to have a slightly suboptimal plan you can emotionally endure for decades than a perfect plan you abandon in a panic. That's a powerful message against the tyranny of optimization.
And it's a message that's more needed than ever. The constant exposure to hype cycles, from meme stocks to AI breakthroughs, fuels financial anxiety. This book acts as an anchor, reminding you to focus on the timeless behaviors, not the timely trends. And there's a darker undercurrent to all this, something you see online a lot called financial nihilism. It's this growing belief, especially among younger generations, that the game is so rigged with housing costs, inflation, wage stagnation, that there's no point in even trying to save or invest in the traditional way. They see the system as broken, so they either give up entirely or they swing for the fences on high-risk gambles like meme coins because it feels like the only shot they have.
And that's where I think Housel's philosophy is more relevant than ever. Financial nihilism comes from a feeling of powerlessness over external forces. But Housel's core message is to ruthlessly focus on what you can control. You can't control the housing market, but you can control your savings rate. You can't control the stock market's returns, but you can control your own patience. By focusing on your own behavior, you reclaim a sense of agency. It's the most direct antidote to the feeling that the game is rigged. It's how you win a game that feels unwinnable. So, who should actually read this book? I think it's for anyone who feels overwhelmed by the complexity of finance and wants to understand the foundational behaviors. It's perfect for young people just starting out, as it will install a healthy, long-term mindset from day one. It's also great for experienced investors who find themselves chasing trends or making emotional mistakes.
And who might dislike it? Anyone looking for specific stock tips, secrets to beat the market, or complex financial strategies. This book will actively disappoint you if that's what you want. It's not a how-to guide. Also, highly analytical quants might find the emphasis on stories and soft skills a bit frustrating, even if they'd agree with the conclusions.
It's definitely for the person more interested in their own behavior than in the behavior of the market. So, what's our final verdict, Alec?
Look, this isn't a flashy money book, it's a behavioral one. But if you want to make better financial decisions for decades, not just this quarter, it's hard to ignore. It won't tell you what to do, but it will change how you think. And in the long run, that's far more valuable.
I completely agree. It's a foundational text for thinking clearly about a topic that is designed to make us emotional and irrational. Before we wrap up, what's your single biggest takeaway from the book? The one idea that will stick with you?
For me, I don't want to be the genius. I want to be the person who stays in the game. Durability beats brilliance.
And mine is this: money's best return isn't status, it's independence. Control over your time, less stress, and choices that aren't made in panic. That's real wealth. And that's our breakdown. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the Better Version Book Club, because the goal isn't to read more books, it's to think better after you do.
Master your behavior, and the money follows.